The views expressed in this interview are those of the individuals and do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, the U.S. Navy, or the Naval Postgraduate School. Welcome to the Trident Room, brewer of stout conversation, unfiltered and on tap.
Part 1 of a 2-part episode.
Welcome back, friends. This is your host, Alanna Youngblood, and I am here today with one of my best friends, one of my mentors, and the godfather to my new daughter, a commander retired, Bobby Jones. Before we get into all the questions that I'm going to ask you on this, let's go over a little bit about your career and correct me if my Google search got anything wrong or missed anything. You were a graduate of the Naval Academy, year 2001.
Yep.
Then you were the deck officer above USS Germantown and USS Harper's Ferry, fire control officer above the USS Normandy, and the weapons and then combat systems officer aboard USS Steedham, where I met you, good old DDG 63. After that, you were the executive officer of USS Anzio, also Coastal Riverine Squadron 4, and then moved up to be the commanding officer of Maritime Expeditionary Security Squadron 4 and Task Group 56.7. You also served non-deployment or military adjacent things of a missions counselor at the U.S. Naval Academy, UN peacekeeper in Liberia, war games planner for the Missile Defense Agency, and executive assistant to the commander for Military Sealift Command. You have participated in Operations Enduring Freedom, Inherent Resolve, Noble Eagle, and the recovery of 10 detained American sailors near Farsi Island. So, quite the spread of experience. You also have a master's degree in National Security and Strategic Studies from the U.S. Naval War College, and you're pursuing a second master's degree in public policy at the University of Georgia?
Yeah, a little bit.
You think enough punishment for that first one?
No, apparently not.
Okay. Board member for Atlanta Heights Charter School. Member of Leadership Georgia's class of 2023. And we'll get into all the other stuff that you're doing here now that you're retired. Okay. Anything that you want to add?
I'm failing retirement.
No, yeah. Actually, I was like, don't say you're failing, but no, you are 100% failing retirement.
Not going as I planned.
Okay, but before we get into this, before we get into all the awesome things that you're doing right now that I'd love to highlight, let's start with the before days. So, before the rank, before command, before politics, who was Bobby Jones as a kid?
Pretty energetic. Tried to do things that I got to meet people, like to be around people. Well, sports, a lot of sports. My dad played in the NFL for the Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons. I got to do things like I was in my high school band at the same time doing those sports ensembles. So I tried to cover a lot of ground. When I was a sophomore in high school, that was the first time we visited Annapolis on a college visit trip, and it was different. I started playing football the next year, was very good at it, had a lot of options, a lot of scholarship offers. But
What position were you?
I was a outside linebacker, defensive end, so got to do that. Was pretty good at it relatively quickly, had options, but something about going to the academy, to that academy in particular, and doing something different, being able to give back a little bit, appealed to me. But showed up there July 1st, like 1997. Wanted to go home July 2nd, 1997. And,
Same.
Stuck through it, made it through, played football at Annapolis all 4 years, ran track, was in the gospel choir. So again, a lot of stuff.
You were in the gospel choir?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How did I never know that about you?
Yeah,
That's insane.
No,
okay.
Yeah. So got to do a lot of different things, right? And then, we graduated. President Bush was over our ceremony. And then 109 days later, 9/11 happened. So
Okay.
all of that changed.
To be able to prepare you for that, was there a moment early in life where you realized nobody was going to build your discipline for you?
Yeah, so it's a very funny point that you bring up. A lot of kids their parents say they're smart, they're really smart, blah, blah, and you're able to get through a lot of stuff. When I went to this very elite private school, Westminster, starting in my 7th grade year, that was the change. It wasn't good enough to be smart. had to buckle down. You actually had to learn how to study and do all these other things. You couldn't coast on natural talent. So that was an eye-opener. It was shocking. And apparently I didn't get enough of it in high school, where I went to the Naval Academy, where everybody was like super great at whatever.
Right.
And no one cared that you were super great. It was like all of you suck equally. And then you had to break yourself out of it. The discipline to pursue education, period, I think was the shock to the system. It didn't matter if you were nice. It didn't matter if you were friendly. What mattered was competency. And looking back on it now, it was a process. And don't get me wrong, you still want to be able to communicate with people, be outgoing with people, but if you can't do the job, it doesn't matter. And that's the discipline piece that kicks in. You can be nice all you want to, but are you competent enough to take on a challenge, stay disciplined enough to actually finish it? That, I guess, was school.
Okay. Speaking of all the different systems that you went through, and you said there was a system of going through the high school and all of that, you spent your life entering systems, mastering them, as you said, and eventually challenging them. Where does that instinct come from?
I would say my dad was a very determined individual, and my mom is a very stubborn individual. So it's a combination of the two. The thing that's like my pet peeve is when someone says you can't do something, or they will tell you this is the only way to do it like I did it.
Right.
And that's quite a tightrope to walk, especially in the military, in the Navy, the naval service, because you have, and y'all know it, you have leaders that come and talk to you like, here's another thing that I did that you could put in your toolbox for leadership, blah, blah, blah.
The amount of times that I've heard that.
Right, exactly. But unfortunately, when it's like a square-jawed, very prestigious, honorable-looking white guy saying it, and you're like, well, I can't say the same things you say and look and do it the same way because I don't look like you, I don't have the same background as you, but I still have to be as effective as you, right? That is where the tug-of-war comes in the system that is built around discipline, uniformity, and rigidness. And when you don't naturally fit into those categories, classically, you have to figure out your own way to do things. And so that's kind of where that tug-of-war and pettiness has to come in, where, hey, look, I can be just as effective. I may not be what you ordered, but I can be what you need. That type of mentality.
Was there ever a specific point where you felt you had to build yourself differently than the people around you?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as a junior officer, where you're having to learn and then expected to lead at the same time. And for me, let me back up a little bit. When I graduated from the Naval Academy, I graduated last in my class. Class anchorman is what we're called.
Is there anything that you'd like to tell the listeners about your specific graduation
Not
ceremony?
Really. Not really.
There's not like a specific...
I mean, yeah, I picked up the president. Got in trouble.
There's that. Okay, moving on.
Bupers changed my orders. It's a long story.
Long story.
But the reality is, you come in, and I'm glad I went through the struggles I went through, because the humility taught me, hey, you can't afford to be arrogant about any of this stuff. So when you show up someplace and there's been ways to do it, and mind you, post 9/11, everything changed. It wasn't about, okay, do this. No, hey, get to where you got to go, do the mission, whatever. You quickly figure out that there's this thing that you need to really flex, and this ingenuity that historically the Navy has done a fantastic job of doing it. There's that saying during World War II where the Japanese said you can depend on the Americans to have a plan and to deviate from it. That's why they're good. Well, it kind of came back post 9/11 because we were all doing missions that we didn't expect to do, and you had to figure out the best way to do it. Me personally, I was like, I want to prove that I can be a competent leader. But I quickly found out I cannot connect with my sailors and do the mission the way everybody else has said to do it, because I'm a different person, I'm a different cat, and these missions were different. Think about it. Back then, you had a lot of us playing Army on the ground, doing ground missions and stuff like that. Annapolis, War College, postgraduate school, we weren't teaching how to be that person. But next thing you know, if you're on what was it called, individual augmentations, IAs, you're doing the job. So I had to quickly figure out how to deviate from something I was expected to do, learn something new on the fly, apply it to the people I'm working with, and then for me personally, how is the best way to try to figure out how to do it.
Is there a specific incident that you can
Yeah,
think of
so I
that
mean,
highlights all of that?
wow. So when I was a UN peacekeeper, United Nations peacekeeper for the United Nations mission in Liberia, that is West Africa, Sub-Saharan West Africa, that is post 9/11, that is post after their civil war. During their civil war, a man named Charles Taylor, who is now locked up at The Hague, famously recruited child soldiers to fight that war. He would come into a village, grab a kid 9, 10 years old, and say, "You will fight in my army." And so the kid, of course, is like, "No, I'm not going to fight in your army." They're old enough to understand that. Then they would go find one of the parents, kill the parent in front of the kid, and then say, "You're going to fight in my army." So the kid, freaking out, is like, "Okay, yeah, I will fight in your army, I'll fight in your army." They would give the kid a weapon, and then bring out the other parent and make the kid shoot and kill the other parent.
Oh my God.
Okay, you get dropped off in a situation where these kids were 9 and 10, and they were dealing with that, and then all of a sudden, they're 15, 16 years old, the war's over, their society around them hates them because of what they did, even though they had no say-so in it, and at the same time, they're upset that no one's listening to them because they're no longer carrying a gun. I'm a sailor. All of a sudden, I'm dropped off in that. And back then, the United States, we only had 30 United Nations peacekeepers, and there were over 180,000 peacekeepers around the world that were United Nations. And that was by design because they kept the United States footprint very small.
Mm-hmm.
So in Liberia, there was like 7 of us
Mm-hmm.
out of a force of 17,000. And I'm sitting there in Sub-Saharan Africa, not far from where my family lineage came from the slave trade, trying to figure out, how do I relate to these teenage kids, this community that has been ravaged by their own kids, and try to be effective reaching them, maintaining the peace, but yet also helping them find ways and structures to have a life post-war. It was insane. It was insane. And don't get me wrong, we had a little bit of training, but nothing could prepare you to go through the bush, as they would say.
Right.
And to see this, to find the orphanages and have to deal with this. So I had to deviate from this, okay, here's a structure, blah, blah, and tap into the humanity and the empathy piece of human beings and situations and try to figure that out. There's no training that will ever prepare you for it. You have to build the plane as you fly, which is what we had to do.
Looking back now, do you think that leadership is more about competence or emotional endurance?
Yes. That'd be my answer. Yes. I think it's a combination of both. And I know that sounds like a cop-out answer. Here's the thing. What makes people unique in our line of work, meaning the military, naval service, whatever, is they say that the uniform defines a variety, etc., etc. It's the other way around. The individuals define the uniform. Over the course of 250 years, we have seen people from all walks of life wear these same uniforms, establish these traditions. The only way, though, that has happened, in my opinion, is, yes, competency. 100% agree with competency. But the emotional endurance to apply the competency in the most dire of situations is what I think separates us from everybody else. It's very easy for people to sit there and say, well, this person did this hard job and they get a medal or this, that, and the other. It's another thing to say this person did a hard job in a situation where they were under-equipped, forgotten about, and by the way, may have been segregated because of their skin color or their gender or this, that, and the other, but they figure out a way to excel anyway. What really has bothered me in current times is people trying to erase those type of stories because it does not fit a perceived narrative.
Right.
Well, I hate to break it to you, the first person to die for what is called America today was a black sailor, Crispus Attucks. America has always had people that were underestimated or completely overlooked, established the traditions that we brag about now. That is the pattern. That's how it works. And so when you study the history of our armed forces in particular, and then how that goes from the military into society, you will find a plethora of unsung heroes who were obviously competent, but had the absolute unmitigated gall and audacity to stick with it when everybody told them to quit, or when they said you're not good enough. That's what's unique about what we do. And to be honest, that is the basis of our success in the military and beyond.
Very nicely said. What did the Navy give you that nothing else could have?
One of the reasons I chose to go into the Navy, to go to Annapolis to do this stuff, I have an uncle who was a retired gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps. And he said, when I was looking at all these schools, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida State, all these schools, he said, you know, if you go into the Navy, that's one of the few places where you, a black man, can get a fair shake. If you can do the job, they will promote you. And he said that as dead serious as I've ever seen him. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So I went to the library, looked back when you had card catalogs and microfiche.
The Dewey Decimal System. And started just looking up these stories. And to me, the military in general was way ahead of society as far as integration, doing this. Not because necessarily they thought it was the greatest thing ever, but because they had no choice. You look at World War II, you had no choice. Everybody was on deck. Who's competent? By the end of that conflict, you had people who were never thought could be great at something, great at it. So it appealed to me. The Navy gave me two things. It gave me an opportunity to prove myself, and then it gave me the opportunity to lead. Those are two different things. The way the Navy does things, the way the military does things, it puts you into a profession, which is different than having a job or a career. So let me explain real quick. There are a few things in American society where you are a profession or a professional in a profession. That requires education, that requires an apprenticeship, and it requires an oath. Those are three things that I find very unique. That only applies to, think about it, the medical profession, law, law enforcement, clergy, military. That's about it. Because, yes, you got plenty of things where you will go and get an education. Check. You have a few places where you will have to serve an apprenticeship to show yourself worthy. Check. But it's that oath piece that covers all of these things that they can't list in a scenario that separates these professions in American society from everything else. That's the difference between having a job and a career and then progress to a profession. The Navy gave me the opportunity to lead, but gave me the opportunity to excel myself, those two major things, because it's a profession. And when I think about it, looking back on it, the oath that I took before we even got started, day one, it's sort of like the guiding star on the journey, because they realize that the apprenticeship to show yourself worthy of leadership is going to be hard. And there are ways you can deviate from it, but here's that oath that keeps you focused. I, for one, am very thankful that I chose to go into the Navy, go to Annapolis, do all these things, because I don't think I would have even come close to reaching the potential I have as an individual without it. The oath that we take, and I'm president of Veterans for Responsible Leadership, we say this all the time, that oath does not have an expiration date, right? And so that guidance to continue to serve people, to serve your community, to serve your country is still there. And I'm very thankful for it. And so now that I look at it, the Navy basically gave me my life goals without realizing it, they were my life goals. And it wasn't about, hey, getting command. It wasn't about doing this. It's like, no. What are you going to do with what they call the dash? When you're dead, they'll list your birth date and the day you died. And that's saying, what did you do with the dash in between those dates? That matters. The Navy gave me an opportunity to define my dash. So, thankful for it. Okay. And then on the flip side, because we rarely talk about this whenever we're doing these kinds of conversations, but what is something the Navy took from you?
My youth, my vigor. No, it's funny.
My soul.
Yeah, no, it's the Navy.
In all seriousness.
No, well, it took a lot of milestones from me. I'm married to another Annapolis grad. She's 03. We have 2 daughters. I missed a lot. Because my dumb
Whoopsie.
not only served in the Navy, I was like, I got to do 4 deployed naval forces out of Japan and all this kind of stuff. And then I kept taking these hard jobs, and it took away the milestones that you miss specifically with your family. But that's not unusual, right? If you serve. But here's the thing that I think it took away the most. And when you do this leadership thing right, it drains the hell out of you. Anybody who's listening, you guys, whether you are NCOs or COs or CMC, y'all know. If you're doing it right, you consistently worry about your people. You worry about situations that you may not be able to control, and that takes from you. When you compare yourself to your buddies you went to high school with and what they do for a living, and believe me, I went to a high school where everybody's doing very lucrative things, but they will never understand the burden of trying to take care of 400, 500, 600 people and how it drains on you. So the Navy took a lot of life energy, to be honest. It took a little bit, to be completely honest, a little bit of my humanity. Because as much as you want to be empathetic and as much as you want to care about your fellow man, as you get higher up in leadership, there has to be a separation of that emotion to effectively look at a situation and be objective about it. So that has been something hard trying to regain now that I've been retired for going on 3 years. You don't realize it until you're back into the civilian life and you're dealing with civilians. You immediately find them whiny and this, that, and the other, and you're not as sensitive as you think you should be and this, that, and the other. It's like, if you don't shut up with this is not hard, da-da-da. That's that empathy piece that has to return. You don't let it come all the way in and you become soft as they are, but at the same time, you got to understand they have not gone through what you've gone through. That's something I deal with every day, to be honest with you, trying to gain it back.
You spoke about the loneliness that comes with command that almost nobody talks about publicly.
Yep.
How did you carry the psychological burden of responsibility when other people's future rested on your decisions?
It was tough. It was real rough. I did the whole gung-ho thing for the longest time, just trying to take it on myself, but you can't do it. Eventually, you have to lean on, in my opinion, or your command triad needs to be tight, your XO, your CMC, or your senior enlisted. And then the other thing that really helped with me was talking to my peers that were in command in the seat at the same time. And you're just like, are you guys seeing the same thing? Partly because it makes you feel like you're not going crazy, like you're not crazy looking at the same situation. Then you don't feel as bad because you've got other people who are going through similar, and they may have a solution you have not thought of, that perspective. Which, and this is what I will give the Navy credit for, when you go through the pipeline to get ready for command, they make a point to make sure you know who those peers are. You get to know them during that, however long it takes, year-long process, and you learn to rely on it. But no matter how much that sets you up, there comes a time where you have to make the decision. No one else can, and you have to accept responsibility for the decision. I think my generation of naval officers, the GWAT generation, I don't think a lot of that has been talked about. I don't think it's been documented as well, too. And I think now that a lot of us are at retirement or getting closer to retirement, you're going to start seeing these stories that I'm glad that you guys are doing podcasts and stuff where you can document, hey, what was the thought process? What did it cost you? How did you take on that burden of leadership? Because it's different than, say, Vietnam, World War II. This was an amorphous mission that we had for 20 years, the nation's longest conflict. And those lessons are different because, like I said, I'm a sailor that's on the ground in Africa. I'm in charge of a riverine squadron that deploys all over the world at the same time. These are different fundamental problems that we had to tackle. And it wasn't like the big, huge blue water Navy during the Cold War that we thought we were going to deal with and all that. So I had to eventually rely on other people to help me keep my sanity. But at the end of the day, I realized that the buck stopped with me, depending on what that mission was.
Okay. In a sense, the military creates intense loyalty.
Yes.
But it can also create silence. Mm-hmm. Were there moments where speaking honestly came with a professional cost?
Absolutely. And I can tell you exactly when the most impactful time that happened. Going back to 2020, George Floyd, and what happened there in Minnesota, and how the entire world seemed to examine what their policies were, how it dealt with race and this, that, and the other. And being a black kid from Atlanta, I was like, yeah, okay, we've heard this before. So they put together the task force in the Navy, Task Force 1, and they had all the COs try to comment on it and say, what do you think about how things go? And then they had a session where they basically got the COs together of color And Admiral Halsey, who was 2-star then, was the chair of it. And they asked, hey, we're going to have a very frank conversation. And so I chime in. I said, the Navy has never been serious about diversity, especially in the officer corps. They don't give a whoopsie. It's ridiculous. And to be honest, I can tell you right now what you need to do to fix this problem. It's not hard, but you don't want to do it. So I go, that's why I'm retiring as soon as I can get out of here, because I've seen it my entire career. I've seen people's careers change because the white kid that gets in a fight on the mess decks has got spunk, and then the black kid that's in the fight with them has an attitude problem. I can go down this list. And I said it just like that. It was dead silence because we were having a real conversation. I was real. Well, I'm on my command tour. I'm in the Middle East. I get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd already put in for retirement, and I was going to retire out of my command ride in 2021 out of 5th Fleet. And get a phone call. It's Admiral Halsey on the phone. He's Chief of Naval Personnel. He's like, hey, Bobby, I just canceled your retirement. I was like, excuse me? I woke up real quick then. And
better than a cup of coffee.
Yeah. And he basically laid out. He's like, look, there are a lot of things that you said that are 100% accurate. Looking at your background, we want to send you to one of the ROTC units at a historically black college and university at HBCU. And he sent me home to Morehouse College. And he's like, how do you create and train these kids so they are viable? Train your relief. And they created this position where I was able to work with Georgia Tech and Morehouse and help create better naval officers. And don't get me wrong, it was great. But believe me, my retirement got canceled, all this kind of stuff.
Your professional cost was a canceled retirement.
Yeah, canceled retirement. Looking back on it, I'm glad it happened. But at the time, I was pissed. I was ready to go home. I was ready to call it a day. I had done my part. But I spoke up. And looking back, I was 100% right. They knew it. But at the same time now, looking at how the world is and how now it's, quote, anti-DEI, which I think is hilarious on many levels, it was bold of me to say what I said, and I paid a price for it, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. You gotta say, when they ask for the truth, you got to give them the truth, because the higher up these people go, whether they're admirals, generals, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Admiral Mewborn told me something when I was his EA at Military Sea Lift Command. The higher up you go, the harder it is for you to get the truth. So when you have an opportunity to tell truth to power, you need to take advantage of it. So that's what I did.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us in the Trident Room. For more information about today's guests and topics, please visit the show notes online at nps.edu/Trident Room Podcast. The Trident Room Podcast has been brought to you by the Naval Postgraduate School Alumni Association and Foundation. For questions, comments, and suggestions, please email us at tridentroompodcasthost@nps.edu.